got a chance on a silver plate to do things right, to do it straight. But we're just going to be playing Dead Age. This is the chair acquisition for Dead Age, the aforementioned game, developed by Silent Dreams on the Unity engine. You can pick it up for around 15 of your local currency, whatever that might happen to be. What is it? Survive a zombie outbreak with Final Fantasy-like turn-based combat and permanent death. Manage survivors, craft materials, and make difficult decisions. Defend your camp against the hordes of undead. Prevail in this non-linear rogue-lite, comparable to FTL, innovative indie survival RPG. Mandatory disclosure. The devs did send us some keys to check this game out, and so we are throwing the chairs at it. Speaking of which, 1 chair means that it's garbage. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. 4 chairs means that it's amazeballs. We also got our categories Doom, mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So let us kick this off then. How did Dead Age work?
Over here on the Ubuntu 1604 box of business, 980 powered UHD displayed. Ran pretty good, Brent. Usually about 60 at 1080p. Didn't really want to enhance the fugliness of this at 3840 by 2160, so I kind of left it at that. However, one issue. This is 2016, and as soon as you launch this, you get the Unity scream of nope popping right in your face organ. That doesn't fly. That doesn't fly. And more importantly, it cost you a chair. 3 chairs.
Yeah, I gotta echo Ven's sentiment on that for sure. But the game can't make up its mind if it's gonna pulse audio underrun or not. It's a bit of a coin flip. Usually games are a little more decisive than that because of good audio coding practices. Pedro will get into that a little more in depth, but for me on Fedora 64-bit with the i7 6700K GTX 980, 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM, etc., this gets 3 chairs.
Indeed. So the first thing I saw when I launched this game was the Unity screen of nope. That gets you -1 chair right then and there. Then I got to the main menu, and the first thing I heard was static. Now, I opened PAVU control while the game was still running, and I see the game audio stream flickering in and out. Oh, buffer underruns. Lovely. You know what that means? Bust out the pulse latency MSEC equals 60% command percentage and put that in the Steam launch options. And hey, it stopped doing that. But that nets you -1 chair. Over here on the FX 8370E with the GTX 1080. So you get 2 chairs.
All right, well, that's 2 chairs for Mix with the Working. Up next is Shiny and Sounds. Ven, tell us about it.
Why the fucking hell did you not do this game in 2D? Why? You should have did it, man. But no, you had to make the combat scenes all 3D-ish. Your 2D art, man, I mean, it's completely passable, but the 3D looks like the side project of a teenager who has a mild interest in art and or design. I mean, seriously? Even the animation rigging on the zombies during your turn-based combat is just janky. And yeah, I know you're kind of going for a sense of humor with their fucked up poses and their equivalent, Elvis shaky knees. But all you did, man, all you did was just add to the fugly that was already there. I mean, it just fell flat. You should have went full metal Darkest Dungeon and stuck with like a 2D aesthetic for the entire game. If this thing had sounds, I didn't even notice. I was too focused on like the glaring, half competently done 2D resource managing map, which is part of the game, versus is like, oh, look, Unity asset store of the game with really shit rigging, and it was very jarring and out of place. Technically, it showed stuff on my screen organ, and I guess it made a sound, and I didn't have any horrible fantasy noise like Pedro and Jordan, so I'll give you 2.
Yo, God, does the 3D models really clash? They stand out in not a good way. So modern Final Fantasy games, even before they started moving to more real-time based combats like Yaoi Simulator 2017 and Final Fantasy 13, they moved away from having your 3D dudes in a row and have more dynamic cameras and are taking advantage of the fact that you exist in the realm of 3D. show a more dynamic scene. In this game, not so much. You have the 3D-ish backgrounds with the really, really oddly shadowed 3D models that look like they're straight out of the Unity Assets store there. And I mean, the out of combat stuff is fairly basic map art type stuff, so it doesn't get or lose any points for that because it's not exceptionally beautiful. Also, one thing that really stands out, Fen pointed this out, I noticed it as well. What's with all the zombies kind of derping around in the background in the combats? They're just kind of there. If they were sort of like an oncoming threat, that would be kind of something, but it's not. And like the man says, the sounds are there. I heard them. Do I care about them? Do they really stand out or make an impact? Not really. So this gets 2 whole chairs.
Yeah, first impressions with this game didn't exactly sell it. The 3D models, like Jordan already mentioned, they look like what you'd get from a $20 pack off of the Unity Asset Store. The combat animations are simple, but full credit to them, different attacks all have different animations. So, at least to some degree. And after you've played the game, even if it's just in the same exact combat scene, after you've played a couple of rounds, you immediately learn to recognize what the animations mean. So, I guess that's a positive. Sounds, though, they're overly simplistic and obnoxiously loud when you have like a big old pair of headsets with 3 drivers on each earpiece constantly blaring into your ears. Yeah, that's pretty goddamn loud. And that is if you can hear them, because if you don't set that pulse latency MSEC to 60, you did just a garbled, staticky mess. So for me, get 2 chairs.
All right, so that's 2 chairs for Shiny, and sounds up next is Control. Then, does it work with your Nintendo Power Pad?
Nope, didn't work with the Power Glove either. Even tried my new Thrustmaster steering wheel. Nada. Very highly disappointed. But no, in reality, this is your standard point and click, Gotron, okay, click, 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 wait, click, 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 wait. And that's really all you do. Your combat menu when you're fighting in the turn-based system, it's wicked simple. You'll have like your gun attack, your melee attack. You can dig around in your backpack for stuff that you're never going to have in the first place. There's a medic option for, just like slight power-ups and readiness. Nothing bad, extremely simple, nothing advanced. It's kind of a downside. I'll talk more about that in the fun section. And the resource management menu is where you'll be giving the game most of your business. It's done fairly well, much like a notebook thrown out with like sticky tabs on it. It's not horribly confusing. There are some things in there. It's like, oh, that's how I do that. And it took, 2 or 3 seconds, but nothing to scream negatively about its mother towards. So I'll say 4.
Yeah, I mean, the UI is fairly simplistic and a little uninspired, to be frank, especially in combat. Outside of combat, though, when you're doing the resource camp management, whatever the hell it is, I mean, it's reasonably done. They like Ben said, they do it in a journal style to sort of keep it in theme with what's going on. But again, it's all very basic. There's no fancy bells and whistles. You can figure things out just by clicking around a bit. So no real issues there. I'll give it 4 chairs, though, again, not very inspired, but functional.
Yeah, it is definitely functional. It's just mouse-driven all the way. You click on things and the things act as though they had been clicked on. So I have no complaints when it comes to the controls. 4 chairs.
All right, well, that's 4 chairs for Controls. Let's wrap this boy up. Then, did you have fun with Dead Age?
Finally got a laugh out of me. Good. No, I didn't, because it's get out of the way, man. It's extremely boring, Brad. It is. All you do, you're either fighting zombies or you're selling limited shite that you did, or maybe crafting. I don't know. That's further in the game than I gave enough fucks to get to. The fighting itself is the most generic click and wait one swing thing I've ever seen. There's not much to compare it to, and that is a large chunk of the game. He's like, well, you need to fight 23 fights and all this during the day on Wednesday after 6 p.m. or some shit like that. I was like, So boring. You just click, wait, and see animations. One hit, boop. One hit, boop. One hit, boop. That's all there are for you. And yes, I was watching when Jordan was doing his live stream of this game earlier this week. There's a bunch of zombies doing fucking all in the background. And I was like, well, could they at least, like, Thriller or some shit could break out and keep me visually entertained? It's not challenging either, because you know whether or not you can hit these fights, because it's like, okay, you're going to be hitting this and this and this, whatever the random zombie generator spits out. There's no, like, Darkest Dungeons, like, oh, maybe I could pull this off. Maybe I can. This is, you can read that and it's like, nope, I'm fucked on that one. We're not even going to bother with it. Then you waste a day and all that. So at the end of the day, all you're left with is the resource management part of the game. That's passable at best, I guess. But what really gets me about this is if you go to the Steam store page and you look at the 477 positive reviews out of 471 purchases, that shit is fishy as hell. Absolutely. Then you read those reviews and they're like, game is good. I like game. That's the vast majority of them. And you go to the negative, you're like, oh, look, people who actually played the game. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying. Well, what I am saying is you get one share for this piece of shit.
Oh, speaking of the resource management nonsense, I actually got a mission that's like, find flip-flops, sell it to the merchant. The merchant had flip-flops, so I bought it from him, sold it back to him, and then I got the XP. I suppose that sort of goes hand in hand with the RNG element, where sometimes shit like this happens, but it was just something that really stood out. But to the review proper, I get what they're trying to do, but I don't think it really works all that well. At first, I thought the massive number of hit points your character had in relation to the enemies was kind of weird, but then I sort of get what they're going for, where each fight grinds you on and on and on until you're really, really low, and you're like, oh, can I make it out of this fight? Should I run away? And it sort of goes downhill, though, when you realize if you can't find rations, you lose 20% of your health and you don't get any health recovery. But those rations will never, ever spawn because the RNG just hates your guts. And yeah, I mean, still, the turn-based Final Fantasy style combat isn't really the best match for a zombie apocalypse. It just doesn't really work. It doesn't really help with the tension as you sort of watch your HP meter slowly drain. It's less, oh god, am I going to make it out of it? And more, oh god, this is going to keep going until I die, isn't it? The FTL influence is really, really clear. But I feel they kind of missed the point, because resources aren't actually that scarce in FTL. You're guaranteed at least one shop per subsector, and there are other events that can give you resources. I get scarcity is supposed to be a big thing in the zombie apocalypse game, but even then, one of the coolest things about FTL is the exploration, because you will go from node to node. You can sort of pick your own path and have your own little sci-fi adventure. This one is just sort of, you jump from encounter to encounter and you have the choice to engage or run away. That's it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it does what it can to emulate the conditions of a zombie apocalypse in a turn-based context, and it sort of works. It's just not very fun. And the resource management part is kind of there in the background. I don't think I've ever really run into a situation where I can engage with those elements of the game, because the enemies don't drop enough loot to allow you to do so. Honestly, if you want to play a fun zombie survival horror type game, two games that do this sort of thing a lot better are Oregon Trail and Death Road to Canada. You should definitely play those instead. One chair.
Yeah, honestly, the presentation of this game was so bad, I didn't even feel like it could do anything to change my opinion. But, and if that makes me sound like a hypocrite, hold on. As I keep saying, I'll take a game which looks like complete ass so long as the base mechanics are, at the very least, sound. And chances are I'll find something to enjoy, and I'll be damned. I did find something to enjoy with that age. Not enough for me to keep playing it, but there it is there. Now, they say it's got roguelike elements like you'd see in FTL, but I think I can find an even better comparison. And Jordan already mentioned Death Road to Canada, so I'm going to say Dead Age is what This War of Mine would have been if you had put zombies in it and you weren't constantly telling me that the people I was supposed to be playing Guardian Angel for were miserable all the goddamn time. Now, a little aside here, this War of Mine was one of those games that, besides the already oppressive and overbearing atmosphere, would rather tell me that the people were feeling sad or hungry or cold or miserable than it ever did about making me care about those poor widow people. Fuck that game. Now, when it comes to Dead Age, on the other hand, people here are badass. Disproportionate Unity stock assets, but badass nonetheless. Even if the models aren't store-bought, the default Unity shader configs make it look... Well, they just make a certain subgenre of games look very similar. But Dead Age manages to show us that even with stock assets and the default shader config, so long as you can make the mechanics of your game sound, players will find something to like about it. And while I didn't hate the turn-based combat, the micromanagement crap that you have to do while in camp is what kind of killed it for me. I mean, from the get-go, your character is rescued by complete strangers from the zombies, and the moment he gets to camp, he goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, look, he's the leader. He gets to pick and choose what each and every single person does. That right there, through any and all willing suspension of disbelief I had, it's just right out the window and straight into a zombie's ass. What? 2 chairs.
All right, well, that's 1 chair for fun. And if we tally all this nonsense up, we get 2 whole chairs for Dead Age. So, gentlemen, final thoughts.
If the game wasn't boring enough, they did add a recent feature called casual mode, to where it's not even like Spidey fuck killy at all. So you're genuinely just wasting your time looking at it. And I personally think even with, because fuck you, that's why difficulty level of this. And I was like, I get it. And no, I don't ever want to come back to this. Darkest Dungeons. I mean, I loathe turn-based strategy. Darkest Dungeons at least got me. I was like, oh, all right. I'll have another go at this. This is like, yeah, the only other thing I'm going to do to this game is uninstall it.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I mean, I'll be a bit more positive about it and say that for a game which has all the hallmarks of a shovelware title, it's surprisingly well thought out. And even though I was the big fan of it, well, all 3 of us weren't particularly big fans of it, the positive score in the Steam reviews, shady as it may look, is probably an indicator that they did something right. So I'm going to give them that.
Yeah, they had a solid concept, and I think with a little more work, they may have had a proper game out of this. But as it stands, basically the moral of this story is RN Gesus hates your guts.